Hello, everybody. Welcome to second TechUncovered event. This time purely online, not offline. Unfortunately, no beers, no pizza this time on us. Hopefully, we will make it out to you soon. Today, we would like to discuss a topic leading tech teams from home. And I'm very happy that we managed to gather 4 awesome panelists and 1 great host. I believe you already know the names and the pictures from the promotional posters. So let's move on and let's see what's in front of us for today. So where we are now, it's 6 o'clock. I'm welcoming you already after my introduction and telling you what will happen and introducing you how to communicate with us. We will move on to actual topics. And today we prepared 3 topics which we would like to cover. One of them is handling the current situation. I believe we are all interested in how our companies are doing this. Then very important part, like transitioning back to normal, what will happen after all this crisis stuff will be done. And last topic, where we would like to move on a little bit from all those like coronaviruses and COVID stuffs which are all around us, career part of an engineering leader, and we would like to hear some interesting stories from speakers we have here today. Just before 8 o'clock, we will close the discussion and then we will move on to the digital after party. It's how we call that. We don't want you to miss the opportunity to network with each other, to talk with our speakers and to brainstorm on their topics. So you will have the opportunity to join their personal Zoom rooms and to discuss with them the topics you are interested about. But that will be in 2 hours. Now let's bring us closer to the discussion itself. Today, we will be using Slido. So in case you have questions, would like to discuss something, would like to bring a topic, or would like to give us some very quick feedback, use that, or feel free to use YouTube chat as well. Just be sure that we will not be monitoring that much, so please prefer Slido. And let's test it out. So if you can, guys, please go to slido.com, push there hashtag TechUncovered and open up. We have first a little bit of interactive part prepared for you. On last event, what I really enjoyed, I believe you do as well, was the fact that the companies have their huge fans clubs. And I would like to know today, which company members do we have here? So if you go to Slido, you are able to put there the name of your company, and the more mentions it get, the bigger the sign will get. So far, Socialbakers are winning. So let's see if we have somebody here from Mews, from Wrike, from productboard, or from other companies. Let's go. Let's give it a shot. I can see some Mewers here, and somebody from Komerční banka, Quick Jobs. We have some colleagues, Wrikers. We have Expedia with us. But still Socialbaker rules. Come on, guys. I believe there are more fans of others. So let's try hard. Let's try hard. The Pornhub, nice. Thanks for bringing fun to this. Yeah, that would not be an online event with any of inappropriate jokes. Or if it's true, then congratulations to you. All right, Dixon's, Direct People, nice. Nice. Carphone, News getting bigger, Pipedrive getting bigger as well. All right, Good Data, nice. What else? Productboard also mentioned here. Yeah, Broadcom, nice. All right, let's give it a couple of more seconds. Let's see. IT company, yes, nice. Some anonymous security guy, I believe. All right, thank you very much. So far, it seems like the most fans and most people are here from Socialbakers, Pipedrive being second and Mews third. So I will not hold you any longer, and I will give you what you came for. So right now, I will give a word to our lovely host, Jakub, who will introduce you more what will happen. So Jakub, go ahead.
Thank you very much, Ilya. It's a pleasure to be here. Hello, everyone. I'm Jakub from Pipedrive, and I will be hosting or leading or moderating this discussion. So let's start with me telling you a bit about the structure of the discussion and gaining a bit of information about what you would like to hear. As Ladja said, we want to make it a bit interactive and kind of adjust it to your preferences. So we would like to know what you came for, or judge the appetite to say that. So we can show another poll. Basically, if you can go to Sládek again and tell us what topic of those three you would like to hear the most of, and then we will adjust the timing so there is most time spent on those topics which you want to hear the most. To introduce the topics or the sections a bit more, the first one is about, well, the order changed, but the first one will be handling the current situation, which is like how companies handled the COVID crisis, which means pretty much the past or the last 2 months. Then transitioning back to normal will be a second part. That's about like upcoming several months or like short-term future, or maybe a bit even long-term future. And the third topic, the career path of an engineering leader. As Ladja said, we wanted to freshen up this a bit, like not talk about coronavirus all the time, because even though it might not look like this, it's not all about that, even these days. So thank you very much for your votes. I see that you kind of changed the order of the topics, like to be completely like the opposite of how we planned. I mean, not the order, but the preferences. So that means we'll spend least time on the first topic and then maybe equal time on the second two topics, although it's still changing a bit. So as Ladja said, we will be answering Slido questions. There will be a short section for that or short slot for that at the end of each of these sections. So it would be best if you ask the questions which relate to the topic which we're just discussing. But it's also fine for you to ask whatever questions. I will just postpone the answering to that till the right time comes. Okay, and I think we have enough here. Good to know. Thank you very much for all the answers. And let's begin with the first section, which is about surviving or handling the current situation. So one of the interesting aspects of being engineering leader is that your responsibilities are now spread among many, many different things. I personally find it very interesting about this role. And sadly, one of those things is like making difficult decisions in difficult situations, because it's not always great. And so I would like to begin with this difficult question about difficult situations. And I will ask you, how was your business affected by the current crisis, and what was the most difficult thing you had to deal with? And I would like to start with Pavel from Socialbakers.
So, hi everyone. So I would like to start. It's for us, it wasn't so hard as we expected. Fortunately, what we are doing in our business to our clients, it's the social media marketing platform. And what we do for them, we help the clients to understand and also to create content for the right audience. And it's not just about that. It's also about measuring the results of the content on the social. And also we help them to communicate with their clients in the digital space. And what happened during the crisis is that communication moved to the digital space, meaning jobs, a lot of offices were closed, so they have to communicate with their clients over the social. So it helped us because they started to use our tool more and more. On the other hand, what we expected that it will affect our business as well, because we are serving to many industries, come from industries such as the hotel, accommodation, restaurants, etc. So we expected that it will affect them and potentially it will affect our business. Fortunately, it didn't happen so much as we expected. So for me, it wasn't about the hard decisions because of the business was completely damaged, but we did just some slight changes. And it was more about changing the process, how we operate, than about changing completely the business or the aim where we go, or changing the purpose of the platform. So for us, it wasn't so hard as we expected. On the other hand, yeah, we have some clients who struggle, and they will struggle in the future as well. So it affected us, but it wasn't so hard. So it was quite good.
Cool. Thanks. Good to know that some companies handled this so well. The same question for Ilya. And here I think it's fair to say that Wrike is the least known company of the four, mostly because you are the youngest on the Prague tech scene. So please feel free to introduce a bit of your company as well.
Absolutely. Well, thank you, Jakub. As you said, we're relatively new to the market, and we're excited to be here. It's a great scene, great people that we've met over these months, and especially now with hard times on when we're all remote, Wrike is serving great purpose to be a ultimate tool for work management. Right. So what we essentially do, we provide a single digital solution for teams or individuals to manage their work remotely, or whether you're remote or in office. And it's pretty much anything from automation, project management, reporting, or planning is done within Wrike. So the company has been around for a while. We're about 12 years old. It's, I'm excited to say that we have over 20,000 paying customers, and I'll touch on this a little bit more as we talk through, the impacts to the business, and over 2 million users. This is quite exciting to serve such a huge population of users that are essentially managing their work and their tasks every day on our platform. But most exciting for me is that as a company, we leverage Wrike across the board in every single department within the company. So we're, engineers are personally motivated to do changes that will improve the experience overall. And this is, to me, this is the most, or the coolest thing that I've seen at Wrike. I've been here for just several months, and started to become a huge adopter of Wrike myself. So I merged all my tools that I've been using prior into a single solution. In terms of the crisis itself, yes, our benefit is that we are the work management tool that essentially enables teams to work remotely. However, the industries that we're in will be impacted or are impacted now. So we're seeing some churn, although not a lot. So this is the benefit of the company, I think, is that we're tapping into many sectors, and the sectors, similar to what Pavel mentioned, do differ. So some of them more stable, some of them experience more impact throughout these difficult times. So for us, I think the most difficult path that we had to take is we did have to readjust the course a little bit, but it did not have a huge impact on our plans or the growth.
Mm-hmm. I would like to make it a bit personal, because you joined the company just 4 months ago, if I'm correct, and then suddenly the world has changed. How was it for you? You were probably still kind of getting to know how things work, but still you had to react.
Great question. So you're right. So when we were planning the scale of Prague operations, right? So we're still aiming to grow this office quite significantly. However, COVID situation did impact this planning and essentially led to some of the postponement of these plans. But strategically, we are continuing with that path. In terms of myself, when I walked in for first couple of weeks, we're sort of aligning and gaining traction on the plans that we've set out originally, but we had to readjust fairly quickly and pretty much scale down on some of the growth plans temporarily over the next couple of quarters, and focus on efficiency of the teams that we have right now. So that's, you're absolutely right. There were, for me, it was an interesting transition from sort of a growth model into efficiency model over these past 4 months.
Thanks. And what about you, Wojciech? What was most difficult for you personally?
Regarding product board, and first of all, hi everybody. It's great to be here. Regarding the company growth, I think the story is very similar to what Ilya and Pavel have been saying. So it's hard to add anything there for a high growth company. So you see smaller growth overall, and so the slope is changing a little bit, and we're pretty cautious, and we're essentially assuming nothing until the end of the summer, and we're actually being pessimistic, and then we're modeling sort of 3 ways to go from there. For us, we're still trying to get a lot of people on board. We're trying to use the chance and the change that's happening right now to rethink our strategy in that regard a little bit. For me, what changed? First of all, what changed for me is that I had to start managing from home, which is a very new thing for me. I've done it partially in the past, so I'm happy to talk about that in over the next 2 hours, I hope. But also from how it affected us and how it changed how I approach things, especially when it comes to people. It shook up the job market a little bit, at least in Prague. So we see a lot of different engineers coming on the market, or looking for plan Bs just in case their company also doesn't go too well. So we're seeing it both cautiously, sort of treading carefully not to be too greedy or too ambitious, but at the same time, we're also trying to look at it as an opportunity. So apart from rethinking how we build a team and who we bring on board, we're also looking at the way we work, our processes. We're also right now, we think that until the end of the year, we will be probably supporting a much more intense work at home setup than we have in the past. So a lot of things are changing, and they're actually unrolling as we speak. And I was even describing what's our work from home strategy to prepare for this event for you a few days ago. But just in the meantime, that has also changed a little bit. So constant change is the topic right now, and adapting to it.
Yeah, when you mentioned managing from home for the first time, why was it difficult, or what was difficult about it, or still is?
For me, I'll be talking for myself, but as you learn to manage people, you learn patterns, you develop. I think every manager develops their skills uniquely, and you essentially develop habits, you develop patterns, how you communicate with people, how you get in touch, how you convince people, how you understand what's going on in the team. And I'd say 80% of my habits became completely worthless and useless, and they didn't work because just standing in the hallway suddenly doesn't give you the information you're used to getting. Just chatting up with people, you need a little bit of information here and there, doesn't work, and you need to schedule a Zoom meeting. So I had to develop new habits, and still am developing, and they're a lot more cumbersome because everything requires, or at the beginning at least, it required a Zoom meeting, which means already a 30-minute or a 1-hour slot, and it's a lot of time wasted. And I've also adapted when it comes to starting to solve things asynchronously using and leveraging chat a lot more. And I think it also helped me in a lot of ways, and being more transparent, because it forces you to share the vision in a way that anybody can read it asynchronously over time. So it was actually a good forcing function for me to formulate my thoughts a little bit clearer than maybe I have been doing in the past. And I might have been reaching the people I wanted to reach, but this time I'm able to reach the whole engineering team with the new approaches.
Makes sense, thanks. And the last speaker is Honza from Mews. So you are working in the hospitality industry, or serving the hospitality industry. So I think you were affected the most. So can you tell us about the difficult decisions you had to make?
Yep. Hi, everybody. Thanks, Kuba, for having me. So obviously for us, since we're doing solutions for hotels and their guests, we were, I guess, one of the most impacted industries at all. So in terms of like, let's say occupancy or people traveling to hotels, it dropped to like 10% of where it was before the crisis. So it was pretty big impact. For us as a company, it wasn't impacted like this big impact because our kind of revenue model is based on two pillars. One is like subscription, where the hotels pay for our software, and this didn't change with the crisis. And the other part, though bigger part, is like transactional model, where we basically make money on the payments that are flowing through hotels, and there it dropped a lot. So this like, let's say 2/3, which is the financial part that dropped, the subscription part that stayed. So it wasn't complete disaster for us, but we were like impacted heavily, and we had to make some decisions and adjust the strategy on the company level, how we want to move forward. And Ilya said it pretty nicely, to move from this growth or hyper growth mode to more like efficiency mode or profitability mode. So that was the decision we made on the company level, and that triggered, need to do some layoffs and things like this, find efficiencies everywhere we could. And that kind of cascaded down to all the departments and to me into the tech team, where we had to do some layoffs as well. And that was the most difficult part, obviously, because my team, I liked everybody in my team. I wouldn't want to do that, but it was a situation where we were forced to do this. And it wasn't only difficult for me, but also for my managers who were hiring those people and had to fire those people. So that was the difficult part. And I would say some of the decisions were not fair, basically, and that's like the difficult part on it, because we needed to take into account stuff like probation periods. So that's kind of easier to perform layoff within probation period, but it's not fair. So, or some junior people, even though like potential and great, we had no issues with them, but in order to be super effective, we had to make the decision to, like, on the junior side of the team, make bigger layoffs, because juniors are effectively investment into the future of the company, into the growth of it. So yeah, this was the most difficult part of the whole thing.
Mm-hmm. Thanks for that. Like, obviously that's a situation none of us ever want to be in, to be forced to make those kind of decisions, but sadly it can happen to some of us here. So can you tell us, like, how did you do it? Like, what was the process, and what do you think went well, and what do you think was maybe a mistake?
Yeah, the process basically, each division had kind of, we got some basically budget we had to fit in. So we had to try to squeeze the team to fit within the budget where we can fit. So that was the process. And then we kind of have the ratios of teams within the tech team, kind of like backend is, let's say, 40%, front end is 30%, and there's some QA, data, community management. So we kind of scaled everything back to those ratios. So this basically has given all the division heads kind of the amount they need to save in their teams. So, and then it was more of them deciding how they want their team structured. So I was more like overseeing it, but then it cascaded down even from me to the division heads, where they had to do the, let's say, the final choice. I had some opinions, but the final choice was on the managers, because it's their team in the end, not mine. So, and there was some other question which I maybe missed. But
basically, we have any recommendations for people who might be forced to do the same, like how? So
there are two main things that I learned from it, and that's, it needs to be like communicated really clearly, and it should be done as fast as possible, because what you don't want to have is people not having clarity about their future. So that's, we try to do it as fast as possible, and after it was done, to reassure all the people that we're counting with them going forward. So those were the main two learnings for me during this process.
Thanks. Does anyone want to add to the topic? No. So let's move on to like the topic of happiness at home, if we can call it like this. Because from what I'm observing around me, some people are super happy. I would say happier than before, but others are not coping that well. So can we maybe start with Wojciech this time? Like, are you observing the same, and what are you doing to help those people who are not coping so well?
We were just asking the whole company about a week ago, sending a survey, and the results are pretty mixed. If you sort of do like the demographics and you look at managers separately and individual contributors, you kind of like how you sort of partition and you get a bit different results. Overall, I think managers are suffering a lot more, and it's like a majority is unhappy and is like looking forward, can we open the office as soon as possible? When it comes to engineers, individual contributors in general, it's mixed, and it's sort of half of it is very happy, can continue indefinitely. 30% tell me when to come back, I'm also okay-ish at home. And 30 people are like desperate again. Hey, we need to open office. I think you see like the obvious patterns. It's if you have kids, it's a lot harder. I do, and it's pretty much impossible to work in a smaller apartment because essentially it's impossible to hold a thought or try to say something to more than one person. So that can be super hard. Some people just don't want to have a workplace at home and never set it up for that. Also, I can relate to, and it wasn't something that I was planning like where I live normally. So I think overall we get like mixed signals. So we're sort of trying to adapt for both. So we will try to see and open the office when we think it's safe. We're also trying to follow and go step by step, also going in sync with our Californian office in San Francisco, where the attitude and the sort of guidance from the government is a lot more cautious, and try to give people both options. But it really depends. And we see like the office is still a necessity for us to have and support, but we do see, like you said, a number of people being very happy and feeling productive. But I think it's also due to the fact that even in the past, we were at least had some minimum preparation for asynchronous work, having these two offices in significantly different time zones.
So did it help, you think? Like, did it prepare you better?
We were actually in the process of staffing a fully remote team because we were also trying to run an experiment. How does it go in the global recruitment pool, the global hiring pool, to see how that goes? So we were actually in the process of defining both a policy of like just like a handbook sort of thing. What's the approach, processes, and essentially that team was supposed to pilot a lot of the processes and share their knowledge. But I think it just accelerated a lot of that. But overall, I don't see it having a significant impact on productivity so far.
Cool, thanks. And what about you, Pavel? First, I would like to change the question a bit, like how you personally are affected. Are you liking the 100% at home work style?
Yeah, for me personally, as I'm a father of 1-year-old son, it's very nice. It was very, very positively welcomed from my wife, because right now I can, it's just about the time schedule. It's about organizing your time. So right now I can have every day, I can spend during the day, I can spend some time with my son, with my wife, which is fine for me. But so for me personally, it's good. And I was thinking about that beginning. We started working from home because as our company is work from home friendly, so it doesn't affected us so much because we were ready for that. But before the crisis, before the regulations, it was a bit different because it was 1 or 2 days during the week people were working from home. But right now it was completely different. They are fully working from home, and it's different for them. So it's fine. And for the future, I don't plan to work fully from the office. Because right now I understand that I can manage my time better when I'm working from home. So I expect that also my managers can do that. And it looks that they do, that they are able to manage their time better so they can work from home. But what we believe as a company in the engineering, what I believe is that it's necessary to meet in the office, at least from time to time, because before the crisis, we were strong believers that the collocated teams can perform better. But it's not true. It looks so right now, because after a few months of the lockdown, it looks that the performance is still the same. In some teams, it's much better than it was before. So right now, we take it as an opportunity to make a change in the company, to make a change in our department, and we started to talk more with the people if they are ready to work from home fully, or if they would like to go to the office on daily basis. Because this is where I have to agree with Vojta, because as we ask a lot of questions, we ask the people how they feel, what they would like to do for the future and right now. So it's a mixture. Some of them, they are happy at home. Some of them would like to, they're desperately waiting once we open the office and they can go back to work. But it depends on the team. So our decision probably, it won't be something, we don't want to push the people from the leadership organization, hey guys, go to office, or hey guys, stay at home. Because as we believe our teams, they are, they are motivated and they are also self-managed. So the decision will be up to them, because they will decide if for them, if it's feasible to work from home fully, and let's meet in the office just one day a week. Because what we think is that some meetings are quite important to have them in person. It's some meetings like because as we run the agile, so in Scrum during the sprints they have groomings, and during the grooming it's quite important to be at the same place, because the brainstorming is much faster than do it over the Zoom, because you have when you are in the office, when you are in the meeting room, you have the whiteboard, you can sketch some ideas on the wall or something like that, and it will increase the performance, or it will increase the effectivity of that meeting. So yeah, there will be some mandatory meetings for the future, which will need the presence of the people in the office. But overall, we don't want to push anyone to do it from office or from home. So the decision will be mostly on the people, on the individuals.
Mm-hmm. I would like to play devil's advocate here a bit, because there's plenty of companies which work fully remotely and they are very successful.
Yeah, sure.
You are saying that you believe that it's necessary to be in the office at least sometimes.
Right now we still do, but you know, once it started, for me it was the first week was a shock, because I looked at the performance with my managers and it looked that, oh, come on, guys, it's not good. They are not performing. So what will we do for the future? But the next week, it was again, it went back to the normal. So it was just a situation that the people, they have to change their operations, how they operate, how they manage their time during the day with their families, with the dogs they have at home, etc. But after a few days, it was okay. And right now we can say that, okay, the development teams proved that they can perform in the same way in the office or working from home. So right now, yeah, as I said, we take it as an opportunity. So right now we are thinking about creating remote teams as well. Because for us, it's, as we are hiring people from outside as well, we are hiring from Brazil and from different countries. So once we say, okay, let's go and create a completely remote teams, it will be, for us, it will be easier to hire new people. So yeah, exactly. we are still thinking about having the fully remote teams as well, but I don't think that we are in a situation or we are there right now. Because I feel that we have to learn something more. So, but there are a lot of resources, because there are successful companies like GitHub, Basecamp, and others, where we can learn, we can discuss it with them, and use all the best practices which are used in the remote software engineering for the future. But we take it as a challenge for the next upcoming 6 months. So then I think we will be ready for that, and we'll be ready to build some completely remote teams.
Perfect. Thanks for that, and fingers crossed that it works for you and for productboard. I really personally wish that it becomes more like normal and standard thing to do. Sadly, I cannot ask the same question to the rest of you because the time is up, and we need to move on to Slido questions, and then we'll begin the second section. So let's look what questions we got and choose the ones relevant to what was discussed. Oh yeah, so I like the one on the very top. I've heard many times, yes, Michal is writing here that it's like Czech law is not flexible enough to allow home working or remote working, but now it was possible. So do you think, Ilya, or maybe Ilya, you are, okay, yeah, I will ask you, was the law changed or it's just like silently tolerated now?
So from what I'm aware is that Czech law actually permits the remote work in the Czech Republic when the certain conditions are met, and these are the basic conditions that employer has to supply the employee with. And that I'm not familiar with all the details of the legislation. However, it is permitted by the Czech law to be a remote worker as a full-time employee of the company. So this
has anyone else looked into it deeper, and do you have anything to add?
I think it's, as Ilya said, or as far as I know, it's about providing all the equipment necessary to perform the work from home. So like in theory, the company should pay for the internet, for the electricity, basically for everything that the employee needs to perform the work from home. But this is difficult to check. So I guess the basic necessities like notebook is enough in our case, in case of like tech companies. In case of other companies, it might be like really different.
Yeah, I think there are a bit more parts of it, but I'm also not an expert. So thanks for that. Let's move on to the second one with most votes. So was there any aha moment in the last few weeks leading your teams from home? And if you have anything, Honza, you can continue.
Yeah, for me, the work from home is difficult, to distinguish from the stopped growth and let's say from the impact of the layoffs. So for me, those are basically two factors that play together, and it's difficult to attribute some changes or some improvements or some degradation to one or another. So basically in our case, it's combination of stopped growth and working from home. And I think that actually in our case, like working from home didn't have a big impact, similar to Pavel, as he said. There was like slight drop first week or second week when people were arranging their equipment, but after that it returned back to normal. But I think due to the layoffs and due to not hiring more people, basically due to stopping the growth, I think like the perceived performance even increased because we were investing into newcomers, new team members, and the more senior ones or the people who were longer with us were investing their time primarily into bringing up the new people up to speed, not into doing their primary work. And we had like a lot of time invested into hiring, recruitment, all these other things, and suddenly a lot of those things disappeared. So many people at the moment feel like they have more time on their plate. So I think the overall perception is like positive in my team, but it's a combination of both of those two factors. Yeah, and aha moment, I would say I was kind of like proponent of going to the office as well. And this changed my mind a bit, that I will not be as strong on it as I was, that I think it can work. I'm not sure we want to go for full home office, but kind of people having opportunity to, when they are in the office, use it for the purposes to meet together, discuss stuff together. When they're at home, use it for focus time, because that's something that people suddenly got, the focus time. So yeah, I'm looking into somehow combine positives of both of the approaches.
Cool.
I think
Anyone else has any like aha moment to mention?
I think to add to this, I'd like to share the experience of, Wrike not really being the, remote or fully remote company in the past. Yes, we do have a couple engineering development centers spread around the world. However, the teams within those centers were always co-located. So I guess for me, the biggest call out was that the productivity did not plummet. It went above and beyond. So that proves the point of the teams connect well, remotely or using digital tools. But the other risk that we've seen and wanted to pay attention to is essentially fear of burnout. We've seen people, investing long hours and days into work, and we've seen more and more of people taking most of their time and spending them at work. So this is where we had to essentially pay a bit more attention and work with the teams and to make sure we are actually enabling individual contributors, engineering, product, and everybody else to separate their time invested into work and then their private life. And this is where we've seen a slight improvement, and still, the productivity was continuing to flourish and is continuing to flourish. So that's probably my aha moment. Like teams work fine, being separate from each other, and productivity, we just need to keep an eye on people not burning out themselves.
Mm-hmm. That's interesting that you're mentioning like that some people are working probably too hard and the productivity gets better. So I have to ask, like, isn't the productivity better because of people working, too much, and in a sense that it's not sustainable in the long term?
And you're right. So this is what I mentioned, is that first couple of weeks, it was, people were so engaged and so vested into what they're doing. But over time, we started sort of to focus on that and, basically telling people to make sure that their schedule is managed properly and they have time to spend with their families, time to, do some activities. And with that, we're actually seeing continuous, the productivity was staying at the same level. So it's more investing into, doing more, but more efficiently and more of the right thing rather than just doing everything at once.
Okay, awesome. So other top questions, I think, belong better to the next section. So let's move on to section number 2, which is called transitioning back to normal. And I want to start again with like the same question to all of you, but please, like, very short answers, just 2-3 sentences, so we know where you are. And the question is like, what's your plan to return back to the office or to reopen the office, if you have any plan? And let's start maybe with Honza.
Yeah, so I actually have a chart for returning back to the office. I prepared it. I did survey like the other companies, and I've seen it in political debates, how they do it. So basically, this is appetite for returning back to the office. So we are really split, and part of the team doesn't want to return back to the office. Part of the team really wants to return to the office. So I guess in our case, we will kind of open up the offices and let people who want to come to the office work there. People who don't want to come back will stay home. Basically, that's it.
What about you, Pavel? Do you have any other plans?
Yeah, it's very similar. Right now, our offices are opened. It means that some of the people also from my team, they are visiting the offices. They are working from there, but they are trying to be as much safe as possible. So wearing the face mask, etc., keeping the distance, but they are working from the office right now. But we planning to do it gradually, because we don't want to have all the people at the same time in the office. We run a all hands meeting, but we weren't in the office. It was online. It was just for all the employees, but we will focus on the safety of the people. So it means, okay, if I should be short, it will be gradually and it will be in the waves. So this is how it will happen. But right now we are in the phase of polishing of the plan. It's nothing set in stone yet.
That was a bit more sentences than I intended. But
sorry.
Thank you. What about you, Vojtěch?
Very similar to what Honza and Pavel were saying. I think the focus on making people feel safe and stay safe, like physically, is important for us. So if somebody's essentially going to say, I don't feel safe working in an office, I don't see us questioning that this year at all, and letting them work from home. So essentially on this format, and allowing people to work in the office ASAP for that far end of the scale that Honza was showing, so they can become productive and not burn out at home.
Thanks. And what about you, Ilya? Do you have any different strategy?
It's pretty much similar. We have majority of people that prefer to stay in and work from home, but there are cases that it is difficult for people. So we've opened up the offices this week for people to come in and carefully, keeping distance, working from the offices. So this is our strategy. We are moving into a new space in September, where I think that will make people more excited about, being in this new fancy space. But we will see. We might be, reviewing our strategy there. So
yeah, same story here. We're also just in the middle of a construction of a new office due to open in September. So I think we're going to postpone a lot of the thinking until then, and maybe adapt the new office to the new setup in a way. Still open.
That's interesting thought. Like, what do you mean adapt the office to the new setup?
It's more a random thought I had just right now when Ilya meant it. But depending on the occupancy, we were already sort of playing around with the idea of like how much time people spend at their desk and what sort of spaces you actually need in an office. It's not like to do hot desks where you have less physical space, less desks than the people. Not for that reason. Like square meter per employee were like a double what like the architects come to you to recommend at the start. But it's using some of that space for some like breakout rooms. So for some like formats where it's easier to collaborate, and sort of not just like meeting rooms, but something where you can leave some of your things, be it design, being designs, being its ideas, or just to socialize. So maybe we'll have to adapt to make it safer. Let's see how the waves go. I mean, the situation looks really good right now, but we can have a second wave, which is worse than the first in the summer. We really don't know right now. Nobody does. And the second thing is, if we have, I'm just thinking out loud right now, if we have less people in the office, we already know the how big the office is going to be. Let's use even more room for some of these breakout rooms and the special working areas, which are flexible, but not like deep thought behind it yet.
Yeah, but it's interesting anyway. It reminds me a bit of what Pavel said, that people might come to the office mainly like to collaborate closely with others, have some important meetings where it really pays off to be together, but do the focus work back at home. And certainly office design can make it more efficient.
Exactly. If I can add some sentence to that, yeah. Because it's the same in our company, because we are thinking also about the changes in the office. So right now we are waiting how the situation will evolve. What will be the presence of the people in the office? And once it will show that there are less people than it was before because they are working from home. So we are planning some changes like hot desking. Because if the office will become just the place of meeting the people, not the regular base where they are on daily basis, so it can be changed, and the setup of the office can change based on that as well.
If I can add one thing, because I have another chart which I prepared, so I want to use it. Basically, this is like how our people would like to be either fully home or fully at work. So here there's not much partition. Basically, people kind of are in the middle. So I guess that confirms, what everybody said here, that most of the people would like to, let's say, half of the week in the office, half of the week home office.
Are those charts actually like handwritten?
Yeah, they are, because I don't have printer at home. So I like opened Office Vibe where we did this post, and using crayons, I was redrawing it.
But they are based on real data, right?
Yeah, we did this poll for our employees or members of the tech team, what. So this is like hot data. It was made yesterday and today.
Nice. I think we might all do those polls in our companies and then see if there are any trends, like if it's all the same or it's different.
Yeah, we were actually not to take credit. We kind of copied what Wrike did, or Jan came to me and told me that Wrike did some of those polls. So we just did it as well. So it's not my idea, it's Wrike's probably, or others as well.
All right. Honza, you mentioned before an interesting thing that the working from home kind of is one change for you, but also your company transitioned to less growth mode, but more how to call it, sustain mode. Yeah. Can you elaborate a bit more, if there is any opportunity in this, or what are you hoping to for example use this for, because this opportunity to change in your company?
Yeah, so before the crisis, basically we were in a growth mode, on a path towards investment rounds, every year or every year and a half investment round, and growing a lot. And we don't think that this crisis will be the hospitality sector, it will not be over soon. So basically we made a decision not to have an investment round and be on the bottom when it comes to the market. So we decided, let's change it to profitability, or aim for profitability, and adjust our business for that, because we actually, to be honest, we don't know when the crisis will be over in hospitality sector or travel sector. So we rather wanted to be a bit conservative in this sense and rather prepare for the worst. Currently, right now, it's actually not turning out that bad. For example, the smaller clients we had, those are having issues, but the bigger clients, the groups of hotels and bigger chains, those are actually interested in switching the system, and they are more interested than compared to the pre-COVID times. So we have quite interesting opportunities to, reach the enterprise customers. And I think this applies to everybody who's on this call, because, enterprises, it's long process to, switch their system or get them on board. And this is kind of a suitable situation when switching the system might be a good thing to do. So not only us, but I guess everybody has this opportunity.
And what about you, for yourself as a leader? How do you think you will spend your next couple of months differently than you did in last year, let's say?
Yeah, what we had to do is readjust the teams. So we sunsetted some initiatives, kicked off some other initiatives, moved the people around the cross-functional teams to focus on our primary target, which currently are the groups, bigger enterprise customers. And for me, the let's say leadership style hasn't changed much. I started focusing or putting even more pressure on one-to-ones and catch-ups with a lot of people. So I basically am 70% of the time in a week, I am on calls with various people just to keep in touch with them, communicate with them, not let things disappear. And then second thing is focusing a bit more on, let's say, team-wide calls and initiatives. We have some all hands tech call. I'm doing this podcast, so kind of bringing more voice and visibility into what's happening in the team across everybody, and also towards rest of the company, because it's not only about the tech team itself, it's also their departmental, where I guess the isolation has bigger impact than just the tech team, because the tech team, the guys can make it work somehow. But when it comes to cross-departmental stuff, there it gets more tricky.
So do everyone else have the same experience, or are you experiencing the same change, that you are spending more time or one-to-ones and kind of on calls and explaining the like direction and such?
Yeah, exactly. Because this is what is most important on that when you are working remotely, is the sharing of information. Because in office it happens organically. If you are talking with the people, so everyone knows what's happening. But once everyone is at home, so you have to communicate. You have to over communicate with them. So before the crisis, we had the engineering updates once a 2 months. It was on the monthly basis, or once a 3 months. But right now it's happening on the weekly basis, meaning that we have some virtual coffee session with me, my managers, and entire engineering team is invited, so we can communicate all the changes, what's happening, what's the business situation of the company, so everyone knows what's going on right now. Because I believe that it's one of the most important things is to communicate with people.
Mm-hmm. And Ilya, if we look at your leadership style, like, do you anticipate any changes to it in the upcoming months?
Sure. So, like I mentioned, we've postponed some of the plans in terms of local growth. So we're focusing on efficiency and readjusting the priorities for the product engineering work, as well as looking at ways how we can work and communicate better. So in terms of the management itself, I probably do not envision a huge change. And I think what contributed to it is that Wrike as a company is driven on OKRs, objectives and key results, like I think many companies on this call. And this is the key foundation for and a guiding factor for engineering product and other departments actually to move forward. And with that, I think we're basically sticking to what we have committed to. The plans, the amount of plans has probably not changed, but the commitment to those stays, right? So we're essentially pushing forward the critical functionality to our customers, and the way we're doing it is probably is pretty much staying continuously the same as prior to this, with all the artifacts of working remotely, right? Communication with the teams, managing the customers, stakeholders, and so that's probably my point there.
Mm-hmm. Okay. I would like to talk a bit about the job market now, like what's happening there and what can we expect in the upcoming months. So I think in productboard, you are still hiring. So Vojta, would you mind telling us, how do you see the situation there? Is it any different, and how?
When I joined productboard about 9 months ago, and one of my biggest goals for the first half year, for the first year, something that I didn't expect to go away anytime soon, was hiring and recruitment in general. And it's pretty ambitious targets. It's almost a product team added every month at the end of the last year, what we were talking about. So I think we're about at half of that right now. So we slowed down a little bit, and we also started thinking about the profile and seniority of people we're bringing on board. To be honest, at the end of last year, I was pretty desperate in terms of the hiring funnel, and getting people on interviews. Top of the funnel was just, there was nobody in the pipeline. It was really hard to hire. We're trying to think really hard, basically how to change our approach, how to basically approach more people. We were able to hit able to hit the numbers, or most of the time, but I think it was really taking a toll on us in terms of stress, and the extra effort was needed. And right now, a lot of people I've been sort of casually in touch with are suddenly reaching out. Hey, my company has been laying off, not me, but I want to have a plan B. My friends' companies have been laying off. I have no idea what my company is going to be doing. I want to have a plan B. Or I have been laid off, which we were just talking about, right? Mm-hmm. And it's also made people that have been very happy in companies and sort of been there for a long time, super experienced people building the products from the foundations, sometimes like keep people in the company, started to think about a career change. So some of those have already joined. We had like 11 joiners in engineering in the past 2 weeks, which is what we got in 2 months, 3 months ago. So this was actually, it made it a lot easier. And I think when it comes to the experience of the people, the average has gone up. So it actually allows us to raise the bar a little bit. So overall, somebody else's misfortune is another man's fortune here. But for us, I think that this was, we were actually able to give a lot of the people finding themselves looking for a new job one pretty quickly. But let's see how it goes. I sort of, let's be happy while it lasts, but no idea how this is going to evolve right now.
Mm-hmm. It sounds like it's a big strategic advantage if a company now is like in a strong position to be able to hire, that it's going to pay off.
Yeah, that's exactly our thinking. So, and that's where exactly the raising the bar comes. We did cut a lot of positions that we had open, and sort of managers are more put into a spot of this will be the last or the second last person on your team. Do you really want to hire this person? Because that is the sort of what you're going to be filling up the team with, which makes them think a lot harder about that decision. And again, it sort of pushes on the to raise the bar a little bit, and it's probably we might slow down and end of yearish, but with right now how it strengthens us, it might pay off, and I hope it does.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And salary wise, are you seeing candidates being less picky?
It's an interesting question. I mean, we were one of the first projects I've launched in productboard and we've successfully managed to go through is establish a career ladder and salary bands associated with that. And during the winter, we've also made a big number of changes to make sure that the placement in the career ladder also matches with the salary bands. So what it really gives us, and the idea before that was, if you have a lot of new people coming in, you want to have a function, an objective function that you put in the seniority, the experience, the stack, and out comes a number. And it's not negotiation, it's not bias. And that it lines up with the compensation of your existing team, that people with similar experience will get similar compensation. And so this allowed us, so we haven't changed the salary band so far. So we're essentially going in line with what we have been offering before and what's in line with the rest of the team's compensation. But we see two things. I think, yes, the candidates can be a little bit less picky. It was not a huge problem for us before. I think we were positioned comfortably enough on the market before that the offer acceptance rate was pretty good. But at the same time, some really experienced people kind of come on the market, and we're not like ready with the bands yet there. So there's some actually new things coming at us.
Cool, thanks. So I'm not going to ask anyone personally, but any of the three of you want to react and add something, or perhaps disagree with something?
I think from Wrike's perspective, we're kind of in a similar boat. We scale down, however, we are hiring in the pockets of the teams, UX, maybe CSM, CSO organization. And this is something that we will continue doing. And the strategy there is for us to evaluate how the market and how are we doing on the market quarter to quarter. So it's not that the postponement of recruitment happened until the end of the year, but we are kind of measuring the temperature at the end of the month and at the end of the quarter. So we're hopeful that we're able to sort of reopen the gates or open the gates a bit wider, as you know, and not wait until the end of the year for it to happen. So that's probably what I wanted to share in terms of our experience on hiring and sort of looking carefully at who we hire and how we hire.
Mm-hmm. And what about you, Honza and Pavel? What are your predictions about the job market for, let's say, the rest of this year? How will the situation look like in 6 months?
I'm not sure. I think basically there will be more people on the market, so like better situation in terms of hiring, but that's not my big concern at the moment. Though we're not under complete hiring freeze like 100%, but basically our bar raised extremely high at the moment. So that's our current situation, and I would say that with the recovery of our business, the bar will be dropping slowly. So that's like how we look forward. So if the business starts recovering better, we could be dropping the bar a bit and start hiring more. But at the moment, the bar is, I would say, pretty high.
Yeah, I almost agree with both with all guys, because right now there are a lot of people on the market. They're free. They are looking for new opportunities. During the summer, I think there will be every company which is so lucky and can hire. It's the right time to do it right now.
Mm-hmm. Thank you very much. And I think we can consider this section ready or finished, except the Slido questions, of course. So let's move on to this and see what our audience wants to know. So the first question we have about allowing your people to continue work from home. This part you answered already, but in the second question is interesting. So would you introduce any new practices to measure their performance? So if some of you can tell us if you have any plans regarding that.
We had a question on the engineering manager staff meeting just yesterday if we are going to be considering the COVID crisis and, for example, the official half-yearly performance reviews in the summer. And my answer to that, and we were talking about it with Daniel, the product board CTO, is that for some, it's something that if it's affecting people's performance, and it might be real performance or simply perceived performance, it's something that the leaders in engineering should just raise with the people on their one-on-ones immediately. So it's maybe simply about you're not sharing enough what you're working on, and the team doesn't have enough visibility. It might be your environment is not great and we can't expect you to work as much as you did before, or it's you actually are underperforming because the environment is new and you haven't adapted yet to it. And so talk about it openly and sort of like reset expectations or adjust and sort of try to work it out. What is actually the root cause of it? If there's like a perceived change in performance right now, and not leave it like for a later point in time, but otherwise stay. We don't expect like any process to change. So for us, it's peer feedback, is the manager's feedback. It's also going up. So like process wise, otherwise not, but just right now, like resetting or making sure that the expectations are talked about right now, I think is important for us.
Yeah, if I can add one thing, basically for me, if someone sits in the office, just like the manager or lead, like sits next to him and maybe sees him during the day, that's not like a measurement of performance. So in our case, we already are looking into performance and nothing much changes, with the home office, because just the fact that you see someone in the office being there 10 hours or 8 hours doesn't in the end say much about their performance. So we are not planning to introduce any new measures. We're just like continuously improving them because of course we started with none and then like are gradually adding more or something better insights into it, into the reason, being able to easier identify the root causes of it and things like this. But in terms of like new measures because of the home office, we will not be doing anything.
Cool.
Definitely. Thanks. Because we just replicated the same performance measures as we use in the office to the current situation. So the performance measured the same way as it was before.
Mm-hmm. Cool, perfect, thanks. Let's move on to another question asked by Anyat. So the second part we've discussed already, but the first part is how do you motivate your team from far? We also touched it a bit, but can some of you elaborate if you have any like special strategies for that?
So maybe from our perspective, it's obviously feedback, right? So regular feedback around the progress and, you know, positive reinforcement of the successes that are happening throughout the way. And, you know, we're looking at like a smaller celebrations of important milestones along the way and trying to be creative of how to do it while not being together. These are just a few things that I could think of on our end, but the most important, in my opinion, is the feedback, especially basically ensuring that people understand that they're on the right track and they're nailing it as they progress.
Mm-hmm. Anyone else wants to add anything?
For me, it's just from our perspective, it means that one-to-ones, one-on-one meetings happen as before, and it's about sharing the information. How do you feel? What's your feelings? What's your performance? And how the things go. So it's communication again.
Cool. Okay, let's ask one more here. We have one from Michal. So he's saying that it should be clear now that the remote work is doable. So what's next? Is it remote work in different time zones? So basically, you already, some of you said that you are thinking or even planning like fully remote teams. So how remote will they be, those teams? Will they be across the globe or not really?
Yeah, for us, the way I look at it, there's a difference between like remote work while you're still replicating the practices from the physical world and like fully asynchronous mode, where you basically, we still have some meetings, you know, where people need to join. They are remote, but they're still synchronous and everybody needs to join the meeting. So for me, this is like the, let's say, next stage, but I'm not even sure we want to go to like fully asynchronous teams, which are friendly for, you know, cross time zone setup. So yeah, we have, the teams are collocated, and even if we would have like remote teams, they would be still collocated, let's say, in single time zone, I guess. For me, that this is like the most difficult to get right, like fully asynchronous team composed of people all across the world. That's like the most complicated step. So we basically, before the crisis, we were collocated in single location. So the next step is collocated but remote, and then when we get that right, we could be thinking about something even more advanced. Yeah, we basically need to first learn how to walk, and then we can be running.
I totally agree here. And when we were staffing our first remote team, we were also giving a constraint of like plus minus to 1 or 2 hours from Prague, and we didn't have ambitions to do a global team. I totally agree with Honza here.
Yeah, and the same plan here. We plan to do remote team, but in the same time zone.
Before the crisis, we had team in Australia, so there I had to have catch-ups, you know, in 11 p.m. or around midnight, but that was like the only difference, I would say.
But what about the long term? Like, are you believers of that truly like global remote teams, fully asynchronous workflows and things like that?
I think when the teams grow more mature and independent, in in the more distant time zones, that is definitely an opportunity. But when you're spinning up a new team, that requires a lot of communication within with the core team. That's probably going to be a bit more challenging. So I think it's kind of like a chicken and egg. So you spin up the team in 6 hours away, for example. You need to invest a lot of time and effort to make it successful and independent. From our perspective, I think that's an overhead that we're unable to take right now. Long term, it is probably a possibility, but we're not considering it right now.
If anybody of you has a bit of free time, you can look at GitLab's issue tracker, and they're not only solving tech issues there and pull requests, but also organizational issues. Like they have this pretty radical transparency thing going on, and you can see like promotion discussions or who's going to have this department discussions on there, or policy discussions. How are we going to solve some perks or things like that, or how do we solve a remote work policy? And you can see a few things. You can see two things, or I think it's super admirable. Like for the first one, completely different. I think it's an admirable effort and we can learn a lot from that. But you can see very often two things, and sometimes it like people vent on their blogs about it, and that's how you actually, or I got in the past to the issue tracker. It's a lot slower and it's a lot more inefficient because you're waiting for the people to answer, and they're like not required to answer immediately, and like there's like a much longer feedback loop. And B, I think it's a lot more like emotionally tolling, and you see the people being very careful about formulating things because you don't have that immediate, for example, chance to say something which you said a little bit, how do you say, just like too bluntly or cumbersome, or people misunderstood it. And you can see just conflicts rising on that. And so I think that remote asynchronous communication is super hard. And like you can see on the companies pioneering it, and we all look at as sort of templates on how we could be doing it, that they're struggling with it as well. It's really interesting reading, just going through that issue tracker.
Yeah, I think one aspect that's really like interesting, or I agree with Ilya, is that this doesn't have to be, in my opinion, like company-wide, basically. For me, the like maturity and seniority of the team is like important factor, and we will be taking it into account even with the like home office versus going to the office. That there might be teams that are like together for a long time, they are used to each other, they can work even asynchronously, But if you're spinning up new team or have new people there, for example, we will be pushing a lot to be in the office, because the mentoring and bringing up to speed is best done in person, or even like code review is best done in person rather than through GitHub. Yeah, when we have some issue in pull request, the like solution always is talk it out in person, because that's the fastest and that you clear out the error. So yeah, the seniority of the team or maturity of the team, or I don't know how to call it, is like aspect that we will be taking into account, and not have it like company-wide policy on it.
Right, thanks. Let's do one more question before we move on to the last section. And it's from Mehmet. So don't you think using the office only for collaboration or meetings can reduce the people's feeling of belonging to an environment, company culture, and company culture? Yes, so basically, wouldn't it create like a bunch of individualists, but not a team? And I like it because it kind of touches what we were discussing before, like only using the office for meetings. Who wants to go first and share your thoughts?
Yeah, so I can touch the topic because Mehmet is from our company, so probably it's a question for me. So I don't think so, because it's not. I don't want to have the office just as a collaboration and meeting room for meet people, work, do a meeting, and go home. But I think that you have to invest into that from the company in that way that you have to organize the events, and so it means that people won't join in the office just for work, but also for other activities. It's all the tech talks which are happening there, gaming nights, etc. I can imagine that the events won't be so. They will have some few. A lot of people to attend the events with a lot of people, but still I think that it can be used not just for work but also for the off-work activities. So I don't think it will affect the feeling of belonging to an environment. Company culture will be affected by that. And also you have to do a lot of things, a lot of activities in the online. Is the Zoom calls with entire team, because if not everyone is going to the office, you have to do it virtually as well.
Mm-hmm. So basically you are saying that if you do those like out of work activities in the office, it's going to build up the team spirit and things like that, right?
Yeah. Also, you have to run all the activities like team buildings, etc. So I don't want to corrupt the environment in the way that they won't feel like part of one company.
I think like the more remote the company is, the more effort it takes to keep the culture or keep this. But in terms of like when you count, you would be like let's say 2 days in the office, 3 days home office. I don't think that would have like a big impact on the culture. When you would do like full home office for half a year, I think there it starts to be more tricky to keep the culture, especially for the newcomers to the company. When the team is established and the culture is kind of set, it's easier to ride with the flow. But if the company is changing, teams are being restructured, there it will take, in my opinion, more effort to keep it.
Yeah, I think that's like a universal opinion from those companies doing full remote, that it takes effort and constantly over communicate everything and so on.
Yeah, so
it works.
Maybe to translate it, effort means investment, means time means more money into keeping the culture and less money, let's say, for the development. Yeah.
Interesting simplification. All right, thanks a lot, and thanks a lot for our questions from the audience. So let's move on to our last section. I feel like it's going to be kind of a mind shift, because we'll now stop talking about the coronavirus, and it feels almost like unnatural, but I'm looking forward to it. So the last part is about career path of an engineering leader. So how do people get to this position, what's important, and things like that. So let's start by asking you about your role specifically. Like, so again, I will try to kind of limit the time of your answers to a few sentences. So if you can tell us, like, what do you consider most important in your role? Like, why you exist in your companies? And let's start from left. So Honza, you can go first.
Yeah, I exist there because I was one of the first 2 employees and as a developer. So I was building the product. Yeah, and over time, the evolution kind of went from developer part of very small team to somehow let's say team lead or technical mentor of the people, and slowly it evolved to the CTO position. But the CTO position was before there we were as big, so it kind of the transition for me is basically let's say 3 stages, like individual contributor, developer, then something like a team lead of the developers, still when the developers were 10 people, and then CTO, which is more of a leader and manager of managers.
Yeah, so what does it exactly mean to be a CTO, in a company like Mews? What's your main?
However I define it, that's what it means, because there is no rule book of what it should be. So of course there are some things I need to take care of, but especially now when I have VP of engineering, there the distribution of the responsibilities can be very flexible. So you can have companies where the CTO is more on the, let's say, delivery project organization side. You have companies where the CTO is more on the technical, let's say, more towards an architect or things like this. So yeah, actually this month we're working out the responsibilities and slowly, distributing it. So in my case, I would say I'm more orienting towards the architect side, not let's say the management, the delivery side. So in my case, it's like overseeing how technically the system is done. So collaborating closely with like division heads responsible for backend, front-end applications. That's the one part. Second part for me is like getting somehow involved into product as well, because I kind of have some ideas that are stemming from the technical solutions that could be brought into the product area. And third pillar of my responsibility is like company-wide things in the leadership team. So even, dealing with some things besides tech team.
Yeah, cool, thanks. I fully agree that the role doesn't have a unified definition, and that's why I'm asking from your experience, what does it mean for you? So that was super, super useful.
Yeah, I'm really interested to hear from the guys there how they have it split. So I'm interested in that.
Exactly. Yeah. Let's hear out Ilya. Like, what does your role mean?
Sure. So I think when I joined Wrike, the strategy was to invest into engineering organization, and as we were bringing up the Prague hub, there were and we are planning to onboard 12 plus teams here. So that essentially my role is my role there is to scale the organization and also transform this into transform it as we progress in the product development. So where we started talking about transitioning from being functional driven engineering development into more sort of product feature driven, and we needed to align the organization to it. So this is basically my responsibilities to enable the teams and the organization to adopt to that new path. So like I mentioned with scaling of growth, that the plans did not change, right? So there's a lot of work, it's a lot of change management to that needs to be completed to get to that path, and that includes many aspects of transitioning, starting from going towards service-based architecture, looking at how we form and shape teams, and the third pillar is actually what we are delivering. So this is also kind of falling under my domain, and the product focus is also engineering focus, and maybe it is. I don't think it is unique to Wrike, because we are using Wrike as we developing it, but product focus is one of the areas that is part of my responsibility and job. Like, what are we doing? Does it make sense? How can we make it better, essentially? Besides that, what's also part of my responsibilities is in the lower degree is similar to Honza, is the operation aspect of Prague office, but this is something that requires less time than the other three pillars that I mentioned. So that's.
Yeah, I wanted to ask: do you consider yourself like a side lead of the Prague office, or there is someone else with you?
It's a great question. So I held these roles in the past, but what I like about Wrike, there's no such thing as a site lead. You could call it a site committee, if you will. We have engineering. We have CSO, CSM organizations here. So we have HR and recruitment. So it's, call it a committee, if you will, that that operates and responsible for success of the site.
Awesome. So what about you, Vojta? You have a CTO above you, and then it's you, I suppose. So how is your role defined?
Yeah. So my exact Exactly. So my team is essentially the engineering managers of product board, also the platform team, and some of the engineering managers are right now actually building up, are actually getting engineering managers as direct reports. So we're sort of like in this phase where our size is requiring us to delegate a lot more and sort of make more local decisions. I'm originally an engineer. I think it's something that I've always enjoyed, and I think it took me quite a bit of time to let go of that. And when Honza was talking about like being an architect, I think I over time learned to appreciate a lot more to be an architect of the organization, not the technical stack. And I think it has super deep impact on how what we produce. And it's, you can bring in Conway's law into this, but I really believe that it works. And for me, it's product teams. It's not like feature teams, not mission teams, though I think those are really good at some phase of the company, but product teams which stay in a domain, cross-functional, which basically essentially all have all the tools to deliver what they need. And that's, I think, one of the biggest places where I come in, is helping making these changes happen. Try to understand the strengths of the team and how does it fit, because I think the profiles in each company are unique. You might have super strong engineers, you might have really good managers, and sort of mix and match that to build that up. So for example, in product board, the product organization has come up with a job to be done concept. The 3 jobs we help the product manager product manager do, and we want to build a team behind that. So this is something that then I'm trying to think really hard of how we can structure engineering behind that. The technical part of the job is something I probably love the most, but I have the least time to do, and this is something that I see mostly in a role to. I try to open the discussion if I see there's a direction we should be going. Service architecture, Ilya mentioned, is a big change for product board. But I'm no longer in a role where I would figure out the details. I do have a pretty strong opinion how we should do it. I'm very careful not to say it, rather empower the teams and make it clear that this is the direction they should go into. And I'm really happy to chip in and sort of point out where I see probably some caveats which might not work well. Maybe I'm right, maybe I'm not, but that's what essentially where I can come in. And I think it's about clearly saying who has like the mandate and is empowered to do these changes, and who's also accountable for these making these happen. That's, for example, one of the traits in product board. There's very strong engineers which don't want to move in the management track, taking on people management. But I think it's really the best people which can make some of these pretty hard technical migrations, which will take a year, realistically, maybe more, to happen. So that's another part of it. And I think the last pillar, which if you didn't do anything else, is help translate how the business and what sort of the company vision, like what can we do to rally behind that, and what does it mean in terms of the things we want to deliver, but and setting the goals and like making it clear what makes us successful. Interesting. Like what caught my attention was that you said that the technical parts are what you love the most. Yet you are. It looks like you are kind of actively making career choices, which will lead to you doing it less and less, right? Do you really love it the most? Yeah, I think so. I was working in another company when I became like a manager of managers, and it was easier because you had the context built up. So you basically you could participate in any discussion. You wrote a third of the system or participate in writing a lot of it, and you could participate anytime. But product board, I came to 4 years of code and people which thought very deeply about it, and this is a completely different setup, and that's not where I can contribute the most. I don't have that context where I can step in and have some piece of magic advice. So you have to change, and I had to change my approach a lot, and I think it was actually for the better, because with the technical decisions, engineers are going to be faster than me in contributing to the code. So this is something where I think it was actually a good thing. Yes, I didn't expect not to do that. I will be doing less and less technical work, but that's reality. I think I was coping with it for a few, like, I don't know, 2 years, but I've accepted it right now. And I think I learned to enjoy it. And I actually find this really fulfilling right now.
Cool. Thank you. So Pavel, do you see it similarly as one of the guys?
Yeah, I think that all of the guys see it very, very similar. So I started at Socialbakers as a developer as well. It's more than 11 years ago. Originally, I was one of the first developers there. So for a long time, I was one of 2 developers who understood everything, every single line of code we did. But it has changed a lot during the times because I decided, and decision. It was quite a hard decision for me. It was to stop coding and work more with people than with the code. It was as I started working as a Scrum Master. So I was leading 1, 2, later 3 teams, and then it was the role of Director of Engineering. But over the time, for me, it's not about the title. It doesn't matter if you are the Scrum Master, if you are a developer, because if you see some things which could be changed, so you can do that. And I was so lucky that in Socialbakers, we were able to do that because still we are listening to people, we are listening to the developers, we are listening to everyone in the company. And we adopt the change, we apply the changes because once someone has a good idea, so let's try it. It's one of the best learnings I had from the past is that what is very important is to hire people who are smarter than you because they can help you. They can help you to scale the organization. They can help you to be a good leader because they are smarter than you, and so they have right opinions on things. So, but you are asking on the responsibilities, and so for me it's more pillars. It's one of them. It's just to be sure that we are aligned with the company's strategy and vision. So we deliver, we are aligned with the product team, we are aligned with the product strategy and roadmap. So not just from the perspective that we are delivering the right features, because it's more the product responsibility. They understand the market, they understand the sales, clients, and the business outside. But I make sure that we deliver it in the best quality, and also the velocity is quite important. So during the time I was very focused on the software development, focused on the process of developing the software. So this is what I think is one of the most important things in the process, is how you do that, how you adapt to changes and which your company use. So it's one of the aspects, it's one of the responsibilities, but still there is something which is quite difficult to describe, but what I believe, what I think is quite important for the team when you are the leader is the motivation. And also translating the company values and the company vision. Because once you can do that, it's very easy to have the people on board and they can help you once they understand what the company would like to do and what are the reasons behind that. So it's quite easy to lead them, to navigate them to achieve some goals, etc. So it's, for me, one of the most important things for leaders is to be able to communicate with people, translate a company vision and strategy, and also to motivate them to be, because I think that the positivity is the value which is quite important. So
yeah, I agree. We call it like the driving alignment, which is something leader should do. But I want to touch or like follow up with something which you kind of mentioned. Like all of you were developers, and there is probably some developers in our audience now who are thinking about, doing less and less technical stuff and going in that leadership path. So what would you recommend them? Like, what would be the step you think they should take. And maybe you can continue, Pavel, since you were talking before.
I think that the good path, because once you are the developer, once you are individual.
Sorry, can you repeat the first?
Yes, I saw that unstable internet connection. So I recommend to start at a small scale. Start at the team, because if you prove that you are able to lead a bunch of people, to lead one team, so probably there is a potential, and you can grow up, and you can grow up into the leader of some bigger organization. Doesn't matter if it's a tribe in the company, if it's the department, or if it's the entire engineering, or probably if you are good in leadership, you can be the CEO as well.
Mm-hmm. Do you have any other advice, Honza?
For me, I would say like not go too much into depth of single area, but more go into the like breadth, so that in my opinion, like the best developer for a team lead is like a full stack developer. It's not like a specialist on backend or specialist on something. It's rather generalist, because then they can like, and not even on the development, but it should be have overlap on the other areas outside of pure development, which can be like design, product management, then a little bit some people's skills and things like this. So rather, instead of going too much into depth, I would recommend to try to cover like more areas, because then this helps. And the upper you go, I guess the more it helps to understand the business and translating it to the teams. So not focusing yet. That's like one thing I learned, that there are those 4 directions. If you're a manager, like down, which are the people below you, up, people above you, sideways, your peers, and not only within your division but outside of it, and out, which is outside of the company. So I think a lot of people like focus on the downwards direction, but being a good leader means like covering, let's say, all those 4 or 5 directions, kind of trying to balance it. Even like I'm also like focused too much on the direction down, and I know I should be like balancing it a bit better, but like this was for me like a big realization that it's not just down. Those are 4 directions, and they should be balanced.
Interesting observation. And now slightly different take for you, Ilya. Do you think that someone who hasn't been a developer before or doesn't have a technical background can be a successful engineering manager and lead a technical team?
It's a great question. So I think when you need to have at least some background to manage engineering teams, right? And to me, from what I've seen as successful cases of say business analysts or agile coaches that went into leadership roles or within engineering, and I think they're on top of the qualities that Honza called out. I think empathy is another one. Like you need to understand the people, like their worries, their ambitions, their goals, and make out how you align that with your company values and goals as well. Like, and that's how you get the best out of the people. So in essence, if you're able to rely on your engineering peers and talent, that's the perfect combination that I believe could work. So that's probably what I've seen in the past, and I think this is something that that is definitely something that could be pursued.
And what's your take on it, Vojtěch?
We have about three core responsibilities for the engineering lead. It's the goal setting and making sure the vision of and the business goals are translated into the team's part. It's people growth, which is very important, and it's technical alignment, and it's making sure that you understand the decisions being made. You're pulling the team to a decision when it's too hesitant for too long. You understand the trade-offs being made. And I think this third pillar is very hard if you don't have that background. So you have to super overcompensate for it and like over focus on it to make that one work right. And you need to be able to ask a lot of whys, and you're going to have to be able to research things very quickly. So I saw one of the Sládek questions. Perhaps with tech savviness, yes, but this one area is going to be so hard for you. That's where it's going to either work or not work.
So would you recommend people at least like trying, or you think it, because, yeah, or am I hearing that you think it's not possible basically?
When I think Honza was mentioning the full stack developers. So I think we have engineering managers which were very strong on one of the stacks and now have a full stack team. And for example, in their case, I see it's just something that can be hard for them. And it's something where they have to put a lot more attention. It's for sure possible, and we're counting with them to stay on that role. But it's hard. So I think it's probably going to be hard already to get hired by somebody, because you're going to have to have a very good story why you're a good fit for that. So it's more like you're going to be pretty unique in that position if you pull it off. But it's like I never want to say no, because you could potentially lose a pretty good person that way.
Mm-hmm.
It's going to be hard.
There's this also other part that if you would be you should be leading engineers and leading developers, and the developers should feel that it's someone worth following. And even myself as a developer, I would find it really hard basically to follow someone who doesn't have this background. So in plain words, like who's this guy? He hasn't developed anything. Why should I be listening to him? It's oversimplified, but somehow I guess that's like a bit of an engineering mentality. So I agree with Vojta that it's like really difficult to pull it off. And yeah, you can gain a respect like in other means, having deep knowledge in some other area which the developers would respect. But I think the easiest way how to gain, let's say, respect from the developers is to basically showcase that you're worth following and you have good opinions, you can help them grow, etc.
Yeah, because without technical background, it's nearly impossible to build the trust between you and the developers. So it's quite difficult.
I think you can make it work if you don't know the exact stack of your team, but you know something else briefly. I know nowhere near as much about React as our engineering team. I would completely fail. I can do some basics. I can write an app. I've written apps, but I would fail our interview. And still, it's something that I can talk about, and I understand the decisions we're making, and understand how our micro front-end transition is going or not going well. But it's also a lot thanks to experience in other stacks, and the problems tend to repeat themselves. But so that might not be a hard requirement to know exactly that stack. But again, you will have to study a bit and ask a little bit more to understand.
And playing a devil's advocate here, like, isn't there a risk that if like the engineering manager is strong technically, that in the end that one person is gonna do the architecture, do the alignment, define goals, motivate people, and so on, and then it's like a single bottleneck and one person who cannot do all of those things well, and then the team will fall apart, right? But if the manager didn't know tech, there can be some other person in the team who would take all those responsibilities. Would that work?
We didn't say it has to be the strongest engineer on the team. It's just that having an engineering background.
Like the trends, the technology trends are moving so fast, you cannot keep up with all of them, and so sooner or later you basically have to let go of them, because you cannot run in multiple. Even for example, on front end, it's evolving so fast, then just keeping pace just with the front end and all the new stuff, technologies and concepts is like a half-time job on its own. So thinking that you can keep pace with everything, that's like that's impossible.
Yeah, and when it comes to scale of the company, so technology, then you understand, because in case you don't hire those people, you will be the bottleneck, and this is what you can't afford as a leader.
So you want to add anything, Ilya? This will be the last thing before we go to Slido.
So to me, I think the other reflecting on what we've talked about is, I think as you progress through the leadership roles, you're kind of getting more and more distance from the technology, and that's this is a trade-off you have to be aware of. And yes, you can keep up with the trends, but you need to rely on your team to make these critical decisions. The other piece is that for people that are pursuing the leadership path, is to understand that working with people is difficult, and it's something that you need to be very often accepting of the fact that you need to manage trade-offs, you need to sell, you need to buy, and this is a very complex process in the product engineering organizations.
Mm-hmm.
So that's probably what I wanted to add.
Makes total sense. Thanks. All right, so thanks a lot. Let's switch to Slido. We have around 6 minutes to answer some of the questions, and then we will move on to after party. So yeah, I thought I will try to pick questions related to the last section, but I don't think it's gonna be possible. So let's go based on votes. So first one, asked by Anonymous. Is there anything that you guys learned in this moment you may keep in the future? So, and we talked about this quite a lot. So just answer if you have any like new things which came to your mind. Do you have anything? No. So then there is a rewind button on YouTube, and the person can go back and re-listen.
I recalled one thing I can add. It's a small one. Basically, during the crisis, we started doing within the tech team RFCs a lot more. So like request for comment documents. Basically, when someone wants to propose some bigger change, we use GitHub for that. And it's no longer like discussion in front of whiteboard, but it's like pull request with description of the change. And what actually was nice learning that thanks to those RFCs, kind of people from all the divisions got involved. So it wasn't only backend guys discussing the change, but thanks to it being public on GitHub, suddenly even front-end guys and application guys got involved into discussions where they, before the crisis, were not normally involved. So, the RFCs I see as a big thing, or bigger thing that helped a lot with like cross-pollination of the ideas across the teams. Even like those teams are pretty far in terms of technologies, in terms of the concepts, they are like the same. So the RFC is like one, let's say, tip, or how to call it.
Cool, yeah, makes sense to me. Perfect, thanks. Now we have a question from Daniel Haupt, and I'm wondering, I know one Daniel Haupt, which I haven't seen for 10 years, most likely. So I'm wondering if it's the same person or not. But anyway, the question is about, again, like changes you plan to do in your company after the crisis. But we talked about this, but then there is one addition, especially in sales and onboarding. So let's focus on that. Are we gonna do your onboarding any different?
I can talk about it quickly as well. Basically, that's one part of our strategy that we like stepped back from commercial offices in all the cities, and we're now focusing more on like centralization of this and selling much more online, and also the onboarding. We're moving to fully digital onboarding. Like traditionally before the crisis, we were sending people in person to the hotels, training the staff there. Now we're aiming to like fully digital onboarding, yet still there are cases where it needs to be done in person, especially for the bigger clients, where you need to train the trainers because the company is so big that they have trainers you need to train, and then their trainers train the rest of their staff. So in those cases, it will still be probably in person, but otherwise, yeah, we're aiming to digitalize it much more.
So are you actually doing some like product changes to enable that? Or it's a process change only?
this is mainly process change, but there are product things around it as well. You know, universities, some walkthrough through the products, and some even possibility of self-onboarding that the hotel can basically, they can build the hotels, let's say, on their own, because the system is pretty complex. So sometimes you need help with setting it up. So yeah, basically doing some wizards that they can do it on their own much easier.
Mm-hmm. Cool. Then one more question from Adrian is again very close to the one we discussed before. So if there is some like experienced manager with technical savviness, but no direct technical knowledge, like we discussed it at length, but if a person is like very dedicated and really would like to get into tech with that good management experience, well, can they do anything? Or like any specific steps they can take to increase their chances?
I think it goes both ways. Like engineers who become managers and have a lot of direct technical knowledge but no management experience should be pretty honest with themselves that they know nothing or not much about management. And it goes the other way around probably as well, that you're sort of self-aware what's your strengths, where you need to improve, and like use the fact that you're strong in some parts and focus on that a little bit less, because you can work like on your sort of automated habits a little bit more and invest a lot of time into the other areas. As relying on the team, building up a trust network in the team, that will help you get the work done, understand what they're doing, the context, and you're going to probably have to invest a lot more into basically delegating and the team process, basically how to come to these decisions, how to present them, and essentially figure out a good way to rely on the team to actually, which has the direct technical knowledge. It's a very vague advice, but the same way, like it's similar to advice for beginning engineering managers that really start looking into where they can grow there, what are the opportunities, what are they not doing so well, and trying to find ways how to improve that.
Yeah, it makes perfect sense to me. Like basically, and you need to compensate in the areas where you aren't so strong, right? So come up with some smart solutions for that. Okay, and the last question.
Maybe, sorry. If I interpret the question a little bit more broader, basically it's work in tech. So I'm not sure if it means purely tech team or tech companies, but tech companies have other departments and other roles where basically like management and tech savviness is kind of nicely blends together. So basically like engineering team is like most hardcore tech, like product is closer to tech, but also like a little bit further from tech. So their engineering or tech savviness helps, but is not like as crucial as in like tech department directly. So if you meant like tech company in general, I think there are many roles where you could very many good roles.
Agree. Okay, and now with that, we've officially reached our time limit. So thanks a lot for your answers. I think it was super interesting, and we touched so many topics that I think a lot of people can take something out of it. So thanks a lot. And with that, I'm handing over the mic to Láďa again.
All right. Thanks a lot, Jakub. Thanks a lot to our great speakers. I believe they received all huge applause. Even though we cannot hear it that much, we might try to give at least some pleasant words or instant feedback to the chat. So if you can somehow like express your opinions about that, please give us something. Second option, what we can do, if you still have open Slido, you can give us the instant feedback on rating. How much did you enjoy today's discussion? It's very simple. The bigger score it is, the bigger it is. I believe on your mobile phones it should be showed as the stars. So more stars we receive, the better it is. So let's give it a little bit of moment to gather some of the votes. 4, 5. That's very nice. Thank you very much. We really hope that you enjoy that. We enjoyed organizing and preparing, so we believe you had the same amount of fun as well.
With that poll, we are also checking how many people stayed till the end.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and thanks a lot for very pleasant words and claps in the YouTube chat as well. Not sure if our speakers can see it, but we have here some expression of great talks, thanks, claps, and so on. So very great. Thank you very much. All right, so I believe this can be closed as a successful event. Thanks very much for everyone to attend. In case you can give us a couple of more minutes and give us more detailed feedback, please check this QR code. There is a feedback form where you can express yourself, give us more feedback when in a written form, and maybe like rate our speakers and what's the most important, propose the topics we can cover the next time, because we would like to continue with this format to bring you more company representatives talk on various topics from tech, and we are really looking forward for your insights. After the chat, after this, I will also share the link to the YouTube chat, and plus we will send it to you to those who registered via Eventbrite and share it on Meetup and Facebook event. One big thanks belongs also to you for being with us during today. Thank you. You've been a nice audience. I really enjoyed the interactiveness with you via Slido and YouTube chat. Thanks a lot for explaining your points. And last point, what is in front of us right now, as we promised, we would like to do the digital after party. We will be using Zoom as we did with our speakers. So right now we will be closing the main one, closing the stream here on YouTube. Give us like 2-3 minutes to take bathroom break and pick up water and stuff like that. And our speakers and our host will be in their individual Zoom rooms, which you can join and discuss any interesting topics you would like to get more into details to the questions, get more answers to those questions which we were not able to manage via Slido and so on. I believe it's all from my side. Once again, a huge thanks to our speakers and huge thanks to our host, Jakub, and see you next time in another event. Thanks. Bye, everyone.
Great. Thank you, guys.
Thank you, guys. See you.
See you.